Admiral James Walker stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Earth's flagship and the most advanced vessel in the United Earth Fleet. Through the view screen, the vastness of space stretched before him, but his attention was fixed on the holographic projection hovering at the command console. "They call themselves the Cybermen," said Lieutenant Emma Reed, the ship's intelligence officer. Her face was grim as she displayed the intercepted transmissions. "Their message is simple: surrender or be upgraded." Walker's jaw tightened. Upgraded. Their term for forcible cybernetic conversion. "They don't conquer planets, sir. They transform populations." The bridge fell silent. Humanity had faced alien threats before, but nothing like this. The Cybermen were neither diplomats nor traditional conquerors. They were coldly logical machines with a singular purpose: to convert all organic life into versions of themselves. "What are their capabilities?" Walker asked. Commander Tom Brooks, tactical officer, brought up the sensor readings. "Their ships are heavily armored, sir. Conventional weapons seem to have minimal effect. They also appear to adapt quickly to our attack patterns." The first encounter had happened just 3 days ago. A small Earth colony on Uraba had gone dark. When the patrol ship Hermes investigated, they found the colony's inhabitants transformed, their humanity stripped away, replaced with metal and circuitry. The Hermes managed to escape and warn Earth, but not before recording the horror of what the colonists had become. "And they're heading straight for Earth," Walker confirmed. "Yes, sir," Reed replied. "Their fleet will reach our outer defense perimeter in less than 7 days." Walker straightened his uniform and addressed the bridge crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face an enemy unlike any we've encountered. These Cybermen don't want our resources or our territory. They want us, transformed into machines like them. They believe this is an upgrade." He paused, his voice hardening. "We know better." "Sir," Brooks interrupted, "Central Command is on secure channel. All Earth fleet vessels are being recalled to Sol. They're implementing Protocol Omega." Protocol Omega, the last resort defense strategy, never before activated. It called for the concentration of all Earth's military might in the home system. "Inform Command we're on our way," Walker ordered. "And get me everything we have on cybernetic vulnerabilities. If these things were once biological, there must be some remnant we can exploit." As the Defiant changed course for Earth, Walker retreated to his ready room. On his desk sat a photograph of his family, his wife Lisa, and their daughter Kate. He picked it up, studying their faces. Dr. Alan Morgan, the ship's chief scientist, entered after a brief knock. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the Cyberman technology from the Europa footage. I think I've found something." Walker looked up. "Go on." "Their systems appear to be vulnerable to electromagnetic pulse disruption, but not in the conventional sense. They've hardened against standard EMP attacks, but their neural network, the part that links their biological components to their mechanical systems, operates on a unique frequency. Can we exploit it?" Morgan nodded. "Theoretically, yes. But we'd need to get close, dangerously close, to deploy such a weapon effectively." Walker set down the photograph, his decision made. "Then we'll get close. Develop the weapon, Doctor. I'll worry about delivery." As Morgan left, Walker activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the Admiral. As you know, we are at war. The enemy we face doesn't seek to conquer us, but to erase what makes us human. In the coming days, we will be tested as never before." He paused, looking again at the photograph. "But remember this: what makes us vulnerable, our humanity, is also our greatest strength. The Cybermen have sacrificed emotion for logic, flesh for metal. But in doing so, they've lost what we still possess: creativity, intuition, courage, and hope. And those, my friends, are weapons they cannot defend against." The red alert klaxon sounded, bathing the room in crimson light. The war had begun. Earth, once a blue jewel against the blackness of space, now bristled with defensive platforms and military vessels. The orbital shipyards worked around the clock, retrofitting civilian craft with weapons and armor. On the surface, evacuation centers processed millions as humanity prepared for the worst. In the war room beneath Geneva, General Laura Hayes surveyed the tactical display with growing concern. Representatives from every major nation stood around the table, their faces illuminated by the holographic projections. "The Cybermen fleet has accelerated," she announced. "New ETA, 36 hours. President Thomas Wilson rubbed his tired eyes. "What's the status of the evacuation?" 15% complete, replied the civilian coordinator. "We need more time." "Time is the one luxury we don't have," Hayes said. "Admiral Walker's plan is our best shot." The plan was audacious, perhaps suicidal. While Earth's defenses engaged the main Cybermen fleet, the Defiant would lead a small strike force directly against the enemy flagship. Dr. Morgan's experimental weapon, codenamed Thunderchild, would target the neural network that the Cybermen used to coordinate their hive mind. "It's a one-way mission," someone murmured. Hayes didn't disagree. The Defiant launches in 2 hours. Aboard the warship, the crew made their final preparations. In the hangar bay, Walker addressed the assembled pilots who would escort the Defiant on its mission. "I won't lie to you," he said, his voice echoing among the fighters. "The odds are against us, but every moment we keep the Cybermen occupied is another moment for our people to reach safety." Flight Lieutenant Jack Miller stepped forward. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" Walker nodded. "We all volunteered knowing the risks. Whatever it takes to stop these metal bastards, we're ready." A murmur of agreement ran through the assembled pilots. Walker felt a surge of pride. This was humanity at its finest, standing together against impossible odds. In the weapons lab, Dr. Morgan and his team made final adjustments to Thunderchild. The device was surprisingly small, a sphere barely larger than a basketball. But within it lay humanity's best hope. "The targeting must be precise," Morgan explained to Commander Brooks. "The pulse needs to hit their command node, which should be in the center of their flagship." "And if we miss?" Brooks asked. Morgan's expression was grim. "Then we won't get a second chance." Lieutenant Reed entered the lab, her tablet displaying new intelligence. "Sir, we've decoded more of their communications. They're not just planning to convert Earth's population. They need our planet's core resources for something they call the Great Upgrade, a massive expansion of their fleet. If they succeed here, they'll have the resources to spread throughout the galaxy," Morgan realized. "Then we make sure they don't succeed," Walker said from the doorway. "Is Thunderchild ready?" Morgan nodded. "As ready as it'll ever be." The ship's intercom crackled. "Admiral to the bridge. Cybermen advance fleet detected entering the Kuiper Belt." The time had come. As Walker headed for the bridge, he passed crew members making final calls to loved ones, writing letters that might never be delivered. Yet there was no panic, no breakdown of discipline, only determination. On the bridge, the tactical display showed the approaching enemy. Thousands of ships moving in perfect formation. It was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. "Communications, patch me through to all Earth forces," Walker ordered. When the channel opened, he spoke not just to his crew, but to every defender in the system. "This is Admiral Walker. The enemy approaches, intent on stripping away our humanity. Today, we show them what that humanity is worth. We fight not just for our survival, but for our right to remain human. With all our flaws, all our emotions, all our chaos and beauty." He looked around at his bridge crew, meeting each pair of eyes. "Remember what we're fighting for. For Earth. For humanity. For the future." As one, the crew responded. For Earth. The Defiant's engines flared to life, pushing the massive warship away from the orbital dock. Around it, the strike force assembled. Fighters, destroyers, and support craft, a small armada against the mechanical tide. As they accelerated toward the outer system, Earth grew smaller behind them. Walker took one last look at the blue planet. "Prepare for hyperlight jump," he ordered. "Take us to the enemy." The void between Mars and Jupiter erupted with weapons fire as Earth's defense fleet engaged the Cybermen armée. Railgun rounds and energy beams crisscrossed the blackness, finding targets with devastating effect. But for every Cyberman ship destroyed, two more advanced, relentless, and unconcerned by losses. Their adaptation rate is accelerating, Brooks reported on the Defiance bridge. "Our standard weapons are becoming less effective with each exchange." Walker studied the tactical display. The main Earth fleet was fighting valiantly, but they were being pushed back. The defensive line around Mars was already compromised, and Jupiter's orbital platforms were reporting heavy damage. "Any sign of their flagship?" Walker asked. Reed's fingers danced across her console. "Long-range scanners have identified a central command vessel. It's massive, sir. At least 3 times the size of the Defiant. That's our target." "Commander Brooks, plot an intercept course." Lieutenant Miller signaled the strike group to form up. The Defiant banked hard, its escort fighters adjusting formation to match. They bypassed the main battle, using the chaos as cover. Several Cybermen vessels broke off to intercept them, but the human fighters engaged, sacrificing themselves to clear a path. "Enemy ships on R6, the tactical officer shouted as the bridge shuddered from a direct hit. "Evasive pattern Delta," Walker ordered. "Return fire, all batteries." The Defiant's weapons blazed, striking the pursuing vessels. One exploded, another spun away damage, but a third closed in, launching boarding pods. "Intruder alert, decks 7 through 9. Security Chief Marcus reported. "Cybermen are attempting to board." Walker turned to Brooks. "Take a security team and hold them off. We need 10 more minutes to reach the flagship." Brooks nodded grimly and left the bridge as Walker redirected his attention to the battle outside. The Cyberman flagship loomed ahead, a grotesque amalgamation of metal and organic components, like a cathedral built from stolen bodies. "Sir," Reed called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the flagship." "On screen," Walker ordered. The view screen flickered, revealing a figure that had once been human. Metal plates covered most of its body, with only patches of pale skin visible. Its eyes were replaced by optical sensors that glowed an eerie blue. "I am Unit Alpha Prime of the Cyberman Collective," it stated, its voice a disturbing blend of mechanical and organic. "Your resistance is inefficient. Surrender now and receive the gift of upgrade. Your biological limitations will be removed. You will become perfect." Walker stood from his command chair. "This is Admiral James Walker of the United Earth Ship Defiant. We reject your gift. Humanity embraces its so-called limitations. They're what make us who we are." "Illogical," Alpha Prime responded. "Emotions are weakness. Individuality is chaos. The collective brings order." "Order without freedom is just imprisonment," Walker countered. "We've seen what you do to people. That's not an upgrade, it's extinction." Alpha Prime's expression remained fixed, incapable of showing emotion. "Then you will be upgraded by force. Resistance only increases the resource expenditure." The transmission cut off as the Defiant rocked from another impact. "Shields at 38%, the tactical officer reported. "We've lost 2 more escort vessels." Below decks, the situation was deteriorating. Brooks and his security team had established defensive positions in the main corridor, but the Cybermen kept coming. Their metal bodies absorbed conventional weapons fire, and they adapted quickly to changing tactics. "Fall back to Checkpoint Bravo," Brooks ordered as another security officer fell. The Cybermen had already converted 3 crew members, turning the ship's own people against them. On the bridge, Morgan arrived with Thunderchild. "The weapon is armed, but we need to get within 1 kilometer of their command node for maximum effectiveness." Walker nodded. "Helm, take us in, full impulse. All remaining fighters, provide cover fire." The Defiant surged forward, its engines straining. The human fighters swarmed around it, drawing fire and sacrificing themselves one by one. The massive Cybermen flagship grew larger on the view screen, its surface bristling with weapons. Distance to target, 2 kilometers, the helm officer called out. Shields at 12%, tactical added. Walker keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands, brace for impact. We're going in. The Defiant plunged toward the flagship, weapons firing continuously. The Cybermen vessel responded with a barrage that shook the human warship to its core. Consoles exploded, and emergency lighting kicked in as primary power fluctuated. Hull breach on Deck 3. Someone called out. Distance to target, 1.2 kilometers, the helm reported. Walker looked to Morgan. Close enough. The scientist checked his readings. It'll have to be. Any closer, and we won't survive to deploy it. Prepare to launch Thunderchild on my mark, Walker ordered. Helm, bring us about. We'll need to clear the blast radius. As the Defiant started to turn, a massive energy beam from the flagship sliced through their starboard engine. The ship lurched violently, throwing crew members to the deck. We've lost maneuvering thrusters, the helm officer shouted. We're on a collision course with the flagship. Walker met Morgan's eyes, a moment of silent communication passing between them. New plan, the Admiral said calmly. We deliver Thunderchild directly. All hands to escape pods. Abandon ship. The evacuation alarm sounded throughout the Defiant as Walker turned to his bridge crew. It's been an honor serving with you all. Now go. That's an order. As the bridge crew reluctantly departed, Walker took Thunderchild from Morgan. You too, Doctor. Your work might save us all. Make sure someone knows how you did it. Morgan hesitated, then nodded and left. Walker sat alone in the command chair, the weapon in his lap, as the Defiant hurtled toward the heart of the enemy. The corridors of the Defiant echoed with warning klaxons as crew members rushed to escape pods. Commander Brooks fought a rearguard action against advancing Cybermen, buying time for others to evacuate. Last group away, sir, he shouted into his comm unit. Get yourself out, Commander, Walker replied from the bridge. That's an order. Brooks hesitated, then nodded to his remaining security team. You heard the Admiral. Move out. On the bridge, Walker calculated the Defiant's trajectory. The damaged warship was now on an unstoppable collision course with the Cybermen flagship's central section. Perfect. Admiral. Reed's voice came through his comm. She had disobeyed orders and remained at her station. I'm staying. Walker turned to see her still at the communications console. Lieutenant. With respect, sir, someone needs to ensure Thunderchild activates at the precise moment of impact. The timing is critical. Before Walker could respond, the tactical station lit up. Sir, the Cybermen have realized our intent. They're redirecting all power to forward shields. Walker checked the weapon in his hands. Can we penetrate their defenses? Reed analyzed the readings. Not with our remaining weapons, but the physical mass of the Defiant might create enough kinetic impact to create a breach. A kamikaze run, Walker said quietly. Yes, sir. Walker nodded. Then we give them something they don't expect. Redirect all remaining power to our forward shields and engines. Let's hit them with everything we've got. The Defiant's damaged engines flared with renewed intensity as the ship hurtled toward its target. On the Cybermen flagship, Alpha Prime assessed the threat. Anomalous tactical decision detected. It announced to the collective. Human vessel on deliberate collision course. Calculation. 98.7% probability of self-destruction intent. The Cybermen vessels adjusted their fire, attempting to destroy the Defiant before impact. But the human warship's redirected shields held just long enough. Impact in 10 seconds, Reed announced, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Walker activated Thunderchild's final sequence. Lieutenant Reed, it's been an honor. The honor is mine, Admiral. As the distance closed, Walker thought of Earth, of his family, of humanity's future. He had one final card to play, one the emotionless Cybermen could never anticipate. Open a channel to the flagship, he ordered. Reed looked surprised but complied. Channel open. Alpha Prime, Walker said, knowing the Cyberman leader was listening. You claim to have removed emotion, but there's one you've kept. Fear. Fear of remaining imperfect. Fear of the chaos we represent. That fear makes you predictable. On the flagship, Alpha Prime processed the human's words, something in its partly organic brain, a remnant of its human past, registered confusion. This was not a logical communication in the face of imminent destruction. Irrelevant, it responded. Your destruction accomplishes nothing. Walker smiled. You're calculating based on conventional weapons, but humanity's greatest weapon has always been our unpredictability. The distance counter reached 0. The Defiant slammed into the Cyberman flagship with catastrophic force. Its reinforced bow punched through the enemy's shields, creating a breach directly into the command center. In that moment, Walker activated Thunderchild. The device detonated, releasing not a conventional explosion, but a precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse that propagated through the Cyberman neural network. The pulse traveled along the same pathways the Cybermen used to communicate, amplifying as it spread. Alpha Prime experienced something it had forgotten. Pain. The neural connections binding machine to flesh overloaded. Throughout the flagship, Cybermen clutched their heads as their cybernetic components short-circuited. The effect cascaded outward. Each affected Cyberman became a transmitter, spreading the pulse to others. Ship after ship lost control as their crews collapsed. Some vessels exploded, others drifted powerless. From the evacuation pods, the Defiant's surviving crew watched in awe as the massive Cyberman fleet was neutralized in waves, like dominoes falling across the void. Dr. Morgan monitored the readings. It worked, he whispered. The pulse is propagating through their entire command structure. Commander Brooks stood beside him, watching the flagship begin to break apart. They never understood what they were fighting. They thought removing emotion made them stronger. But it made them vulnerable. Morgan finished. Their perfect network became the perfect pathway for their destruction. On Earth, the Defense Command watched in disbelief as enemy ships went dark across the system. General Hayes leaned forward, hardly daring to hope. What's happening? President Wilson demanded. The Defiant, Hayes replied softly. Walker did it. As reports flooded in, the truth became clear. The Cybermen were neutralized. Their neural network, the source of their strength, had become their greatest vulnerability. Without the constant connection, individual Cybermen were reverting to confused, disconnected states. The remaining Earth forces moved quickly to secure disabled enemy vessels. Boarding parties found Cybermen shut down or drastically impaired, no longer functioning as a collective. In the debris field where the Defiant and the flagship had collided, a single escape pod drifted. Inside, Lieutenant Reed regained consciousness, surprised to find herself alive. The emergency ejection system had activated in the final seconds before impact, launched by Admiral Walker's last command. As Earth ships approached to retrieve the survivors, Reed looked out at the scattered remains of the Cybermen fleet. The cold, logical perfection they had pursued had been no match for human ingenuity, sacrifice, and courage. The battle for Earth was over. 6 months after what became known as the Battle of Sol, humanity was rebuilding. The skies above Earth still showed scars of the conflict, debris fields being cleared by recovery vessels, orbital platforms under repair, the occasional flash of controlled demolition as damaged installations were cleared. In Geneva, the Grand Hall of the United Earth Government was filled to capacity. Representatives from every nation stood as President Wilson took the podium. Today, we gather not only to remember those we lost, but to honor their sacrifice, he began. The Cyberman threat has been neutralized, but at tremendous cost. Over 30,000 military personnel and civilians gave their lives to preserve our future, our human future. In the front row, Dr. Morgan sat beside Commander Brooks, now Captain Brooks of the newly commissioned UES Phoenix. Lieutenant Reed, promoted to commander, sat nearby, her uniform sleeve still concealing the scars from her injuries. "From the darkness of our greatest challenge, we have emerged stronger," Wilson continued. "The recovered Cyberman technology, stripped of its conversion capabilities, has advanced our medical science by decades. Prosthetics that function like natural limbs, neural interfaces that restore sight to the blind. These benefits come from understanding our enemy while rejecting their philosophy." Morgan nodded slightly. His team had been instrumental in adapting the technology, ensuring it enhanced human life without diminishing humanity itself. "But our greatest achievement," Wilson said, his voice strengthening, "is not technological. It is the renewed unity of our species. The Cybermen sought to erase our differences, to make us uniform parts of a collective. Instead, they reminded us that our diversity, of thought, of culture, of approach, is our greatest strength." Throughout the solar system, similar ceremonies took place on colonies and outposts. On Mars, the reconstructed Olympus city dedicated a memorial garden. On Europa, where the invasion began, survivors held a solemn vigil. From Geneva, the broadcast reached them all, including the research station orbiting what remained of the Cybermen flagship. There, scientists and military personnel worked to understand their former enemy, ensuring no resurgence could occur. Chief Researcher Olivia Parker supervised the examination of recovered Cyberman components. "The tragedy," she explained to visiting officials, "is that they began much like us, biological beings seeking to improve themselves. But they crossed a line, sacrificing emotion and individuality for efficiency and longevity." "Could it happen again?" asked one official. "Could we become like them?" Parker gestured to the protocols displayed on her screen. "That's why these ethical guidelines are so crucial. Enhancement without erasure. Technology that serves humanity, not the other way around." In orbit around Earth, the sprawling Adams Station served as both memorial and forward operating base. Its central chamber housed the Hall of Heroes, where the names of the fallen were inscribed. Admiral Walker's name held the position of honor, alongside the crew who remained with him on the Defiant. Captain Brooks stood before the memorial wall during a private moment. His hand traced Walker's name. "We did it, sir," he said quietly. "We saved Earth." "He knew we would," Commander Reed said, joining him. She carried a small metal object, a fragment of thundershield recovered from the debris field. The Cybermen couldn't understand sacrifice. They saw it as inefficient, illogical. "That's why they lost," Brooks replied. "They calculated everything except the human spirit." On Earth, in a small coastal town, Lisa Walker watched her daughter Kate play along the shoreline. They had mourned James, honored his memory, and were slowly rebuilding their lives. Kate looked up from her sandcastle and pointed excitedly toward the sky. "Mom, look." Lisa followed her daughter's gaze. Above them, visible even in daylight, the first of the new defensive platforms caught the sun's rays. Built with recovered technology, they were humanity's shield against future threats. And there would be threats. The recovered Cyberman databases revealed a galaxy more crowded and dangerous than humanity had imagined. Other civilizations had fallen to the Cybermen. Some had survived, many had not. Earth's victory had sent ripples through nearby systems, attracting attention. Some welcome, some not. But humanity faced the future unafraid. The shipyards of Mars and orbital Earth worked around the clock, constructing vessels that combined human ingenuity with the best of adaptive technology. The first, the UES Phoenix, would launch next month with Captain Brooks commanding. Its mission: to establish contact with other survivors of Cyberman aggression, to build alliances, to ensure Earth would never stand alone again. In the Grand Hall in Geneva, President Wilson concluded his address. The Cybermen believed perfection meant the elimination of what makes us human. They were wrong. Our emotions, our creativity, our willingness to sacrifice for others, these are not weaknesses to be engineered away, but strengths to be celebrated. He raised his hand toward the ceiling, which had been replaced with a transparent dome showing the stars above. As we move forward, we carry with us the lessons of this conflict. We will advance our technology not to become less human, but to enhance the best of what humanity represents. We will explore the stars not as conquerors or converters, but as explorers and allies to those who share our respect for life in all its diverse forms. The assembly rose in standing ovation as Wilson concluded. From the crucible of our greatest challenge, a new era begins. An era shaped not by fear of difference, but by celebration of it. Not by the cold logic of machines, but by the warm wisdom of the human heart. As night fell across Earth, lights illuminated memorials in cities worldwide. But between them, life continued, changed, challenged, but undefeated. Children played, scientists invented, artists created. The very chaos and emotion the Cybermen had sought to eliminate flourished. It was humanity's answer to the cold logic of perfection. It was humanity's victory. And among the stars, the Phoenix prepared for launch, carrying that message to the waiting universe.